have been rearrested, but that the issues and the agitations, what he's championing, may not go to rest. And the question on the minds of a lot of people is, with the agitations we have seen in the Southeast, would his rearrest actually fuel what we have been seeing in the Southeast?
Well, his rearrest will not just fuel it. What will fuel more agitation is if he's not given fair trial. If the people perceive persecution instead of diligent, lawful prosecution and fair trial, then there will likely to be some backlash. My brother and friend Jide mentioned the issue of referendum. And the question is, why is Nigeria of today shying away from that much needed referendum? On 11th February 1961, there was a referendum to determine the life of the British Cameroon. And in that referendum, the northern British Cameroon decided to go to Nigeria, and the southern British Cameroon decided to go to Cameroon. A lot of issues about religion and the rest played out. On 10th August 1963, Nigeria, this Nigeria that we have today, went into a referendum to determine the life of the old Midwestern region. And it was carved out from the then Western region through a referendum. In Catalan area, region of Spain, there was a referendum on whether they were going to remain or not. In Kurdish region of Turkey, of Iraq, sorry, there was a referendum. In Britain of late, there was a referendum whether they are going to remain with EU or whether they are going to go out of EU.
Absolutely.
So what the agitation that Nnamdi Kanu is championing is a civil agitation which the federal government has given the tent of criminality. It's embarrassing that government will do the normal Nigerian approach where a man and another man has issues with their land. They are tussling for land. The other man wants to bring in the police. He says there is a threat to his life, that he tried to kill him and all that. Meanwhile, none of those things existed. Otherwise, what has Nnamdi Kanu done as a person that will warrant the charges of treason, that will warrant the charges of money laundering, that will warrant the charges, those high-ranking charges, which, of course, government knows that they have to prove beyond all reasonable doubt.
Absolutely.
And it is the lack of that proof that has made government in the first instance to keep Nnamdi Kanu unlawfully in detention for 2 good years. You know what that means? And then even when he has now started going through his trial, government could not have the patience to wait for the law to take its course, and they stampeded him out of the country. Who is now the culprit in the matter between Nnamdi Kanu and federal government? I mean, let's look at issues the way they are, and not just being sentimental about, oh, he's insulting anybody. When has insult become a crime?
Right.
It is a law of thought. It is a tortious offense, of which if you feel insulted, when America was going for election, somebody made an image of Donald Trump, a naked image of Donald Trump with a small ball, and kept it in a massive square. Did you not see it? Had Donald Trump killed him? The problem we have today is that we are not operating democracy. What we have is a civilian rule managed by military hands. And those tenets of democracy are lacking in Nigeria. Otherwise, why would federal government be so sensuous about issues of criticism and issues of civil agitation? What is wrong with that? If we go by way of referendum, if government, the same government is saying that Nnamdi Kanu has so many followers, does that not tell you something? If he is alone, would he have such followers? If the government now claims that the followers are essentially illiterate, conduct a referendum and say, let only those with school cert. Of course, you know that to be a president in Nigeria, you need only school certificate. Right. To be a senator, a governor, only school certificate. Conduct a referendum and place a benchmark that only those with school certificates would vote in that referendum, and let us see whether Nnamdi Kanu is alone or not. Okay. Government is shying away from the truth, and government is hiding from its shadows.
Right. Now I have
2-hour wait, the court delivers its judgment, discharging Mr. Nnamdi Kanu of the 6-count charge of terrorism on the grounds that the trial court lacked the jurisdiction to entertain the charges against him. The court held that an unlawful and extraordinary rendition without adherence to due process of the law is a gross violation of all international conventions, protocols and treaties that Nigeria is signatory to, as well as a breach of the appellant's fundamental human rights. The appellate court holds that the federal government failed to controvert the allegation that the IPOB leader was abducted in Kenya and brought back to Nigeria without extradition proceeding. The court further adds that the government was ominously silent on the issue, which is described as very pivotal in determining whether the trial court will still have the jurisdiction to continue with the criminal proceeding before it. The court also notes that Nigeria is a signatory to African Union Convention, which was ratified on April 28, 2022, as well as the Charter on Human and People's Rights, which it said prescribed how a wanted person could be transferred from one country to another through an extradition request, which must be in writing with a statement indicating offences for which a person is wanted. The appellate court held that the government's action tainted the entire proceeding it initiated against Mr. Nnamdi Kanu and amounted to an abuse of criminal prosecution in general. Although the counsel to the federal government left the court immediately after the judgment, the lawyer to Mr. Kanu reacts to the judgment.
There was one fundamental issue on which the court today anchored this judgment, this intermediate court. And that is that the lower court never evaluated the mountain of evidence placed before it regarding the forceful capture, kidnap, torture, and extraordinary rendition of Nnamdi Kanu